Caitlin Clark just landed a deal so big it wiped out people she never had to go after herself.
But even before she makes her pro debut, she has a major Nike deal on the line.
When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA draft in April 2024, something unusual happened. The league got exactly what it needed, but had no clue how to deal with it. She brought 2.44 million viewers to her first game with the Indiana Fever. But that number tells only part of the story. The Indiana Fever had been one of the league's weakest teams for years. Their average home crowd was around 4,000 fans in a 17,000-seat arena. Ticket prices were extremely low because almost nobody wanted to show up. Then Caitlin got drafted, and everything changed overnight. Season ticket sales jumped 300% in just 1 week.
And games of the upcoming WNBA season and tickets for the Wings are going fast.
Road teams started moving Fever games to larger arenas because their usual buildings could not handle the demand. And this is where it got serious. The veterans saw those numbers too. They saw packed arenas. They saw merchandise selling fast. They saw their own Instagram followers rising just because Caitlin was now in the league. But instead of being thankful, they pushed back. Diana Taurasi went on a podcast before the season even began and said rookies need to understand their place. She said Caitlin would struggle against pro defenders, but the college game is different, and that fame does not guarantee success. It sounded like advice, but it felt like a warning. Other veterans joined in. They gave interviews where they barely even said Caitlin's name, like saying it out loud would give her more influence. Then the game started. Kennedy Carter shoulder-checked Caitlin so hard during a game that became national news. The hit was so clear and so deliberate that even casual fans who do not watch basketball saw the clip. Angel Reese celebrated it. She clapped on the sideline like Carter had just won a title. The message was obvious. This rookie does not belong here. The cheap shots kept coming. Flagrant fouls that referees barely called. Hard screens set away from the ball. Players talking trash in ways that went beyond normal competition and became personal. Social media posts throwing shade, podcast interviews where veterans complained about all the attention Caitlin was getting. Some players even suggested the media was racist for covering Caitlin more than black players who had been in the league for years. Fans noticed. They started asking one simple question. Why are these players angry at someone who brought them more attention? Because the numbers were brutal. Before Caitlin, WNBA games averaged around 400,000 viewers on a good night.
With new TV viewership numbers, it says the season that began on May 14th.
Some regular season games were getting fewer than 200,000 viewers. A few weekday afternoon games could barely reach 100,000. Teams were playing in arenas full of empty seats. Players were still flying commercial because the league could not pay for charter flights. Then suddenly, those same arenas were full. Games were selling out weeks ahead of time. Ticket prices tripled. Merchandise sales set new league records. TV networks were finally competing for broadcast rights instead of treating WNBA games like filler programming. And the veterans were still upset about it. They compared social media numbers. They checked jersey sales, but every metric showed the same thing. Caitlin Clark was bringing in money and attention the WNBA had never seen before. Yet the players who should have been grateful were trying to go after her. NBC was watching all of this. Peacock was watching too. Team owners were clearly watching and they were taking notes. They saw which players welcomed the attention and which ones pushed against it. They saw who helped the business and who hurt it. Those notes were about to matter. Then came the business move that changed everything. In February 2025, NBC announced a huge media rights deal with both the NBA and WNBA. The deal was worth billions. The WNBA part alone was the biggest in league history. Most people expected NBC to start promoting the league's veterans, the champions and the legends who built it. But that is not what happened. This was not even WNBA coverage. It was NBA coverage. They put Caitlin on screen, with Vince Carter and Carmelo Anthony during pregame shows. She was talking about LeBron James and Steph Curry. Meanwhile, Breanna Stewart and Diana Taurasi were nowhere in NBC's promo material. Think about how shocking that choice really was. NBC had just spent billions on WNBA rights. They could have pushed any player they wanted. They could have built a whole show around league history. They could have highlighted the 4-time champions and the Olympic gold medalists.
Bronze medalists at Paris 2024.
They could have focused on the players who stayed with the league when it was losing money year after year. Instead, they gave the biggest spotlight to a rookie who had played only one season. The veterans were furious. According to people close to the Players Association, some players felt betrayed. They had been loyal to the WNBA for decades. They played through seasons with empty arenas. They promoted the league when nobody cared. They flew commercial while NBA players traveled on private jets. And now NBC was acting like none of that history mattered. But NBC executives were not thinking about loyalty. They were thinking about money. And the numbers were telling a story no one could ignore. That is when Peacock started rolling out its WNBA marketing campaign.
So I'm the #1 fan, but I'm the #1 salesperson for the WNBA. I want to make sure that people understand who we are.
Every poster featured Caitlin. Every commercial focused on Caitlin. The other players were pushed into the background of their own league's promotions. This was not random. They tested different promotional material with casual sports fans, and the results were rough for the veterans. When they showed posters with Diana Taurasi or Breanna Stewart, people hardly responded. When they showed Caitlin Clark, engagement exploded. Casual fans knew exactly who she was. They remembered her college games. They wanted to see what she would do next. NBC also tested social media ads. Posts with Caitlin got 5 times more engagement than posts with any other WNBA player. Comments, shares, likes, saves, every single number favored Caitlin. The results were so one-sided that the marketing team stopped testing other players completely. The executives looked at the numbers. When Caitlin played, viewership jumped. When she did not, it dropped. Her jersey sales were higher than every other WNBA player combined.
Basketball writer Dick Weiss posted that more Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever jerseys were sold
the
in
Indiana
one
Fever
day.
Went from having the lowest attendance in the league to selling out every home game. Away games also saw crowds double whenever teams announced Caitlin would be playing. But the numbers became even more shocking when NBC looked closer. They tracked viewership minute by minute during games and found that when Caitlin went to the bench, people changed the channel or stopped watching. Fans were tuning in to watch Caitlin Clark, not just basketball. That created a huge problem for the league's old system. The WNBA had always worked like the full league mattered more than any one star. Teams shared revenue. Marketing money was spread across the league. Every player was supposed to be part of one shared movement. But NBC's data showed that model was no longer working. Peacock's streaming numbers showed the same thing. Games with Caitlin averaged 500,000 streams. Games without her averaged 80,000. That is not a small gap. That is the difference between making money and losing it. That is the difference between keeping jobs and losing them. NBC made its choice. The veterans thought their titles and legacy gave them control. But in pro sports, control does not come from the past. It comes from what sells right now. And right now, NBC only wanted to sell one thing. While all this was happening, the WNBA Players Association was in a labor fight with team owners. The union wanted a 30% share of revenue. They wanted better pay. They wanted improved travel. Those demands were not unreasonable. Other pro leagues give players much more. But the problem was that the veterans leading the fight did not have the leverage they believed they had. Owners were looking at the numbers. The WNBA had lost money for 25 straight years. The league only stayed alive because the NBA kept covering the losses. Every season from 1997 to 2023 ended in the red. Teams were losing millions every year.
Earlier in the season last year, there was a lot of chatter around it, but as I said, then when we got into the playoffs, people were hardly talking about it. So I think people love the modern NBA.
What happens if she decides to play overseas? The league has put so much on one player that if she steps away, the whole thing could start falling apart. But the owners felt they had no other option. The alternative was going back to empty arenas and 200,000 viewers. They picked survival over safety. The veterans are now learning a hard truth about pro sports. It does not matter how many titles you won. It does not matter how long you have been in the league. The only thing that matters is what you bring right now. And right now, they're not bringing what Caitlin brings. This is going to change how future WNBA players move. Young players entering the league are watching closely. They are learning that talent matters, but market value matters more. They are seeing that it is no longer enough to just be great at basketball. You also have to help the business grow. The game is changing. The veterans tried to stop it. They failed. Not long ago, Caitlin Clark was just a college player with a deep three-point shot. Today, she is the reason veterans are losing jobs. NBC did not make this call because they were being cruel. They made it because the numbers left them no choice. When one player creates more value than a whole generation of veterans combined, the answer becomes clear. The veterans had their chance. They could have supported Caitlin and grown with her. Instead, they tried to pull her down and ended up hurting themselves. Now they are at home while she is sitting courtside at NBA games. The owners are not coming back to rescue them. The networks are not changing course. The business has already moved on. This is what happens when you fight against your own success. The league does not belong to the veterans anymore. It belongs to the girl from Iowa they could not stop, and she is only getting started.